Life in the Arctic demands more than courage. It calls for grit shaped by generations. When temperatures plunge well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, every hunt becomes a high-stakes battle against nature's extremes. For the Inuit, hesitation is not an option. Survival requires total commitment. Imagine facing a sea giant that weighs over 4,000 pounds, nearly 2 tons of raw power, armed with nothing but traditional tools and ancestral wisdom. These enormous mammals aren't just a food source. They're a foundation of community life. A single walrus provides enough meat to feed a village for weeks. Beneath its thick skin lies a layer of fat almost 6 inches deep, which is rendered into oil. That oil fuels lamps, generates warmth, and even keeps critical gear safe from the damp cold of the Arctic's coastal winds. The tusks of a walrus, extending nearly 3 feet in length, hold cultural weight as much as physical force. These gleaming ivory spears are carved into ornate tools and symbolic objects, deeply rooted in tradition. But make no mistake, bringing one down in sub-zero wilderness is no routine task. The real strength lies not in muscle, but in the understanding passed from one generation to the next. Inuit hunters learn to read the flow of pack ice, decode the behavior of animals, and anticipate weather that changes with little warning. This knowledge isn't learned in a book. It's lived, practiced, and passed along with the same care given to family heirlooms. For Arctic communities, hunting walrus is more than a seasonal necessity. It is a declaration of identity. It represents respect for heritage and the perseverance to endure one of the world's harshest environments. Every step in the hunt must be executed with precision. There's no margin for error when a single slip could mean falling into frigid waters or losing your only chance at winter sustenance. The Arctic, with its ever-present frost, may act like a natural freezer, but it's merciless on tools. When facing off against a 4,000-pound walrus capable of smashing through ice as thick as your arm, your equipment has to be more resilient than the morning frost that bites your skin. There's nothing ordinary about leftovers in the far north. One hunter laughed that his grandmother's caribou stew from last winter could pass for a hockey puck. It's that frozen. The gear used for hunting in such punishing conditions is just as rugged. These tools are not off-the-shelf items. They are born from generations of refining what works and what fails. In the Arctic, where the cold cracks steel and the wind punishes weakness, only the most dependable equipment survives. These tools aren't just strong. They're purposeful, built with precision, and designed for one goal: to keep people alive when the environment is actively working against them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. When you subscribe, YouTube is more likely to recommend this kind of content to others who enjoy it too. Just hit that red subscribe button below. It's quick, it's free, and it really helps the channel grow. Traditional Inuit hunting gear is a marvel of engineering rooted in survival. One of the most brilliant examples is the harpoon. It's not simply a sharpened stick. It features a toggle head that rotates under the animal's skin on impact, locking in place to prevent escape. This simple yet powerful design showcases the depth of Inuit innovation. These toggle heads are typically shaped from walrus ivory or caribou antler, chosen not by chance, but through centuries of trial and success. Both materials resist the biting cold better than steel, proving their worth again and again in a land where only the toughest survive. Though many hunters now opt for steel-tipped harpoons, the core of the design remains rooted in tradition. The toggle mechanism, created generations ago, is still trusted for its reliability. The steel selected today is not ordinary. It's carefully chosen to stay tough and flexible, even when the mercury drops below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Among the Inuit, there's a saying that sums it up well. Your snowmobile might leave you stranded, but a good harpoon never will. That bit of humor carries a lot of truth. Many hunters joke that their harpoons are more dependable than their modern machines, and in Arctic conditions, they just might be right. Even the rope attached to a harpoon carries a legacy of durability and skill. Traditionally crafted from the skin of bearded seals, these cords weren't made overnight. First, the hide had to be stripped into narrow bands, then left to dry for several weeks. Once dried, the strips were braided tightly, creating a rope capable of handling thousands of pounds of tension. This strength was essential. When your target weighs nearly as much as a pickup truck and has no intention of giving up, you need gear that holds steady. Creating rope from seal skin isn't just a chore, it's a precise craft. Each strip has to be carved with care. If it's too thick, the rope becomes stiff and difficult to manage. Too thin, and it risks breaking when put under pressure. Today's hunters often rely on synthetic ropes like nylon, but even that comes with limitations. Most nylon becomes brittle and fractures in extreme cold. The versions used in the Arctic are specially designed to remain flexible, even when temperatures drop to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the point where both Fahrenheit and Celsius agree it's dangerously cold. One hunter summed it up with a smile. At -40 degrees, even your nose hairs want to quit. While many trust modern lines, some experienced hunters still swear by the feel of traditional sealskin. One veteran said, "Nylon tells you something's pulling. Sealskin tells you what it's planning." That kind of sensitivity matters more than it might seem. In an environment where the smallest misread can spell disaster, knowing exactly how your gear behaves under pressure becomes not just an advantage, but a matter of survival. Maintaining your tools in the Arctic isn't optional, it's a necessity. One of the most effective preservation methods is surprisingly simple: submerging steel harpoon tips in seal oil. It's more than just a nod to tradition. It works. Seal oil keeps rust at bay and prevents freezing in the moving parts of the harpoon. Thanks to this natural protection, some handmade harpoons can last for generations. There are still harpoons in use today that were built over 100 years ago, each one with its classic toggle head still functioning as reliably as the day it was carved. There's a saying among builders, "If it isn't broken, don't fix it." That perfectly captures the spirit of the Inuit harpoon. These tools are more than weapons. They're historical records. Many carry hand-carved markings that celebrate significant hunts or personal milestones. Some even have tally marks etched along the wooden shaft, each groove commemorating a successful strike made over the years. Then there are the float bags, another example of ingenuity. Crafted from entire seal skins, stitched shut, and turned inside out, they are inflated to act as markers and drag devices. These floats can handle hundreds of pounds of pull, allowing hunters to track a walrus even in the vastness of open Arctic water. Today's hunters may rely on inflatable buoys made from modern materials, but the concept behind these flotation aids remains unchanged. Instead of the traditional sealskin floats with earthy tones, many now opt for bright orange bags, giving rise to a long-running joke that walruses must think enormous oranges are chasing them through the water. These buoys do more than float. They're a critical part of the strategy. Once a walrus is harpooned and a float is attached, the added drag wears the animal down, making escape harder with every stroke. As it struggles to move, it burns energy quickly, giving the hunters time to act. Nothing in the kit is decorative. Each piece is selected for a purpose, and when a 4,000-pound sea mammal is involved, there's no room for gear that doesn't do its job. Another essential tool in the Arctic is the sauget, a long ice probe designed to assess the thickness and stability of frozen surfaces. With a sharp metal point, this traditional spear is used like a walking stick, tapping the ice with each step. But to a seasoned hunter, those taps do more than measure depth. The sound alone tells stories: how solid the ice is, whether it's layered, and if it's safe to cross. One hunter joked, "This ice reminds me of my mother-in-law. Thick, but not to be trusted." With conditions shifting constantly, having a reliable way to test the terrain isn't just helpful, it's how hunters stay alive. Among the most beloved Arctic tools is the ulu, a curved blade knife with the handle placed directly over the blade. Used mainly for skinning and slicing meat, its design allows for strong, fluid cuts with less physical strain. That matters when you're processing an animal with hide thicker than 4 inches in some spots. Walrus skin is denser than many types of leather, and the ulu's smooth, rounded shape gives hunters an efficient way to handle hundreds of pounds of material. This knife isn't just a cutting tool. It's an extension of the hand, shaped for endurance and precision. Modern technology has made its way into Arctic hunting, not by replacing traditional tools but by complementing them. Items like pulley systems and ice anchors now assist in hauling multi-ton walruses across icy surfaces. These upgrades blend with proven equipment to form a toolkit that's both respectful of heritage and open to innovation. Some sleds now feature synthetic runners that reduce friction, improving glide over frozen terrain. As one elder remarked with a chuckle, you can get lost with high-tech gear just as easily as with old stuff. Only now you'll get lost in style. Balancing innovation with tradition isn't a fluke. It's a purposeful way to preserve culture while adapting to challenges. Even storage solutions follow this pattern. Many hunters still rely on seal skin bags, waterproof and divided into sections by hand-stitched seams. Each pocket is shaped to hold specific tools, allowing the hunter to find what's needed by touch alone. That tactile memory is vital when working in bitter cold with thick gloves or in total darkness. One young hunter learned that lesson the hard way after grabbing what he thought was his ice tester, only to unwrap the sandwich instead. The organization of these tool bags reflects years of practical refinement. Pockets are positioned to keep weight balanced and ensure tools are within easy reach, especially when traveling by sled or snowmobile. But it's not just about convenience. These tools must perform in conditions that swing from -40 degrees Fahrenheit to near freezing within hours. Every knife, rope, and anchor has been carefully honed to operate under pressure, whether it's battling icy gusts or sudden terrain shifts. The goal isn't to reinvent the wheel, but to ensure the wheel doesn't crack under stress. That same focus on improvement applies to the hunters themselves. Any new tool introduced into the field is tested extensively, cutting through solid ice, pulling loads across the tundra, or enduring freezing water. No hunter trusts a tool until it's proven itself in real-world conditions. A single failure in this harsh environment can lead to serious consequences, which is why every serious hunter carries backups. Harpoons that have been passed down for generations are still sharpened, cleaned, and stored next to modern spares. Whether old or new, every tool earns its place in the kit through trust, testing, and total reliability. The gear carried by Arctic hunters holds far more than practical value. It carries personal history. Each knife, harpoon, and rope bears the imprint of use, experience, and legacy. A blade dulled by time might carry a notch from a legendary hunt, while a harpoon could bear the name of the ancestor who first wielded it. These tools are not just built to perform. They are passed down with care, often wrapped in memories as much as in seal skin. Over time, each scratch, mark, or carved emblem becomes a chapter in a family story. What may look like an ordinary ice chisel to one person might be, to its owner, the very same tool that helped bring home a walrus during a brutal winter storm decades ago. Symbols etched into gear serve more than aesthetic purposes. They're the fingerprints of identity and heritage. When hunting in groups, these markings make it easy to tell one man's tool from another's. But they also serve as a kind of storytelling. Each symbol may recall the tool's maker, its victories, or the hands that shaped it. Hunters clean and stow their gear with care each evening, knowing that each tool not only has a function but a past. In the Arctic, equipment must be mastered completely. Having it is never enough. It's the skill behind the blade, the knowledge behind the knot, and the stories behind the scratches that make survival possible. Finding the walrus itself may be the most daunting challenge. On paper, spotting a 4,000-pound animal in open space sounds simple, but out in the Arctic, where sky and snow blur into one endless sheet, locating a herd can feel impossible. My old friend Oak once said it best. It's like looking for a pebble in a shifting snowstorm the size of Texas. With millions of square miles of sea ice and rocky coastline, even massive animals like walrus can blend right into the landscape. They disappear behind ridges of broken ice or settle on shorelines, looking more like boulders than breathing creatures. Despite their bulk, walruses have mastered the art of camouflage. One hunter told of walking right past a resting group, mistaking them for drift ice and rocks. Learning to spot them takes time, patience, and seasonal awareness. Walruses follow predictable patterns until shifting weather turns those patterns into puzzles. In spring, they gather near clam-rich waters where drifting ice offers rest between dives. These feeding areas can attract hundreds of walruses at a time. A full-grown adult may eat over 6,000 clams in a single day, turning certain zones into hotspots for those who know where and when to look. Recognizing those hotspots isn't about luck. It's about reading the land and the sea. The presence of breathing holes is one of the strongest indicators that walruses are nearby. These openings, which range up to 3 feet wide, appear where ice is naturally thinner. They become polished over time, their edges smoothed by the animals surfacing every 4 to 10 minutes. Experienced hunters track these holes closely, often using them to determine whether a herd is active in the area. Following these subtle signs requires training, patience, and a sharp eye, skills sharpened over generations. Sound also plays a critical role. When the Arctic wind moves just right, it carries the distant calls of walruses across the ice. These deep, echoing bellows can travel more than a mile in the open air. Some hunters compare the noise to a lion's growl muffled by falling snow, while others say it sounds like an uncle snoring after a heavy meal. Strange as it may seem, these sounds are part of the Arctic's language. The ability to recognize and interpret them can guide a hunting party toward a herd long before it's seen. Walruses don't just make noise. They communicate constantly. They grunt, whistle, bark, and snort to alert one another, express contentment, or signal danger. Over time, hunters have learned to distinguish between these sounds. A quiet grunt means all is calm. A short, harsh snort is a clear sign something's wrong. And when a high-pitched whistle pierces the air, it might signal a particularly abundant feeding spot. Being able to tell these sounds apart is crucial. Misreading them could mean walking into danger or missing a rare chance to strike while the herd is focused on feeding. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. When you subscribe, YouTube is more likely to recommend this kind of content to others who enjoy it too. Just hit that red subscribe button below. It's quick, it's free, and it really helps the channel grow. Even in the era of GPS, traditional knowledge remains essential. Hunters may use modern maps to track polynyas, those patches of open water that stay ice-free due to currents, but knowing how they form and where they drift each season still comes from experience. Walruses are creatures of routine. Many return to the same ice flows and coastal waters year after year. Those familiar with these seasonal patterns gain a serious edge, especially during the coldest months when the ocean locks up and only certain routes remain passable. There are signs beyond sound and ice if you know where to look. Arctic hunters learn to read nature like a set of moving clues. A cloud of circling seabirds may hint at a feeding frenzy below. Certain types of seals often appear in the same waters as walruses, acting like natural indicators. Even the water's color plays a role. A murky, brownish tint suggests animals have been churning the seafloor, digging for clams. These signs, subtle as they are, form a complete picture to the trained eye. No satellite or gadget can match the instinct built through a lifetime on the ice. Once a likely spot is found, the real test begins: waiting. Hunting walrus is never a race. It's an exercise in patience. Hunters might stay motionless for hours or even days, carefully positioned near breathing holes or along the edges of ice sheets where walruses are known to surface. To protect themselves from the relentless Arctic wind, they often construct small shelters using snow and ice. Inside these makeshift refuges, they sit low, conserve heat, and remain completely silent. These quiet hours aren't wasted. They're moments for passing down knowledge. Elders share time-tested techniques, recall memorable hunts, and teach how to interpret the subtle signs the land offers. In these frozen moments of stillness, wisdom moves from one generation to the next. Modern technology has undeniably added new tools to the Arctic hunter's kit. Binoculars and spotting scopes now make it easier to scan wide-open landscapes for the smallest signs of movement. Some even use drones to observe from above, reaching places that once took hours to explore. Still, technology doesn't replace skill. It supports it. The best tools in the world are only as good as the person using them. A beginner might miss what's right in front of them, while a seasoned hunter can read a faint trail in the snow and know exactly where to search next. What may appear like instinct is actually the result of years, sometimes decades, of observation and experience. A trained hunter can look across the ice and instantly recognize a ridge where a walrus has hauled itself up, or spot a feeding ground based on subtle signs others wouldn't even notice. But Arctic knowledge is not fixed. As warming trends reshape the landscape, walruses shift their patterns. Traditional polynyas sometimes fail to form, while new gathering areas emerge unexpectedly. These changes demand adaptability. While modern mapping tools can assist, it's the ancestral knowledge that provides context. Hunters today must be both historians and innovators, blending old wisdom with new realities. Finding a walrus is never about following a checklist. It's a fluid exchange with the environment, a rhythm between sea, sky, land, and life. Arctic knowledge isn't just taught, it's lived. Each hunt adds to the community's collective memory, discovering a new breathing hole, recognizing the shift in migration, or even hearing a call in unfamiliar conditions, all become part of a mental database that grows with every journey. Hunters not only inherit knowledge, they contribute to it. Once a herd is found, the hunt enters its most delicate phase, the approach. Despite their massive size, walruses are easily startled and acutely aware of nearby movement. Hunters must become part of the ice itself. They never move directly toward their target. Instead, they follow a zigzag route, using every bump, snowdrift, and crack as camouflage. Even the crunch of a misstep can send the herd diving under the ice, potentially vanishing for days. A successful approach demands total control of sound, sight, scent, and self. The goal isn't to overpower the animal, but to reach it unnoticed, with care and respect. In the final phase of the hunt, precision is everything. A single wrong move can undo days of work. That's why many traditional hunters take to the water instead of crossing fragile ice. Their preferred vessels are handcrafted kayaks, frames of wood covered tightly with seal skin. These boats move almost silently, gliding across the surface with barely a ripple. One elder joked that even a sleeping seal makes more noise than a well-made kayak. Approaching a 4,000-pound walrus from the water, with little more than stitched hide between you, and the frigid sea demands not just experience, but courage. Wind direction is also a critical factor. Walruses might look sluggish, but their sense of smell is sharp. They can pick up human scent from over half a mile away. To stay hidden, hunters must always move downwind. Many carry small pouches filled with powdered snow, tossing it into the air to read the wind's slightest shift. One gust in the wrong direction could send an entire herd vanishing beneath the surface, reminding every hunter that in the Arctic, no detail is too small to matter. Closing in on a walrus herd isn't a race. It's more like an extended, silent dance. Every member of the hunting party has a role shaped by tradition and practiced with precision. One may create soft sounds to gently draw attention, while another quietly maneuvers into position under the distraction. Spoken words are replaced by hand signals, many of which have remained unchanged for generations. Even the ground underfoot becomes a concern. Snow, under certain conditions, lets out sharp squeaks with every step, which can betray the hunter's location. To avoid this, hunters move in a careful rocking motion, heel to toe, spreading their weight in the same way predators do when stalking prey. But instead of paws and fur, they're wrapped in layers of insulation, crossing fragile sheets of ice, where a single wrong step can echo louder than a shout. Understanding a walrus's behavior is like reading another language, one told through posture and movement. Though large and lumbering, these animals have subtle ways of communicating unease. A raised head might mean curiosity, while a small adjustment in body position could suggest suspicion. Skilled hunters watch for these changes the way others might watch facial expressions. Where hunters position themselves also depends heavily on the terrain. If the ice is stable and thick, they'll space themselves apart to reduce noise and maintain visual contact. On shifting or questionable ice, they stay closer, both for mutual support and safety. Interestingly, the usual spacing between them is roughly the length of two adult walruses, around 24 feet, giving them the best balance between stealth and communication. Tactics shift with the seasons. In the low light months of winter, darkness helps conceal movement, but sound carries farther across the still frozen air. Ice groans, and snow crackles underfoot. In contrast, the extended daylight of summer introduces new challenges, especially with shadows. Long shadows cast by a low sun can give away a hunter's position, so movements are often timed to match early morning or evening light, when those shadows can be used as cover instead. Although some hunters now wear modern clothing designed to block scent and absorb sound, others still turn to traditional techniques. Rubbing seal oil into outerwear helps mask the scent of humans, a method passed down through time. One hunter once joked, "After 3 days out here, the walruses probably smell better than we do." The terrain itself can be as unpredictable as the weather. Crossing over unstable or broken ice is among the most dangerous phases of the approach. Every footstep must be deliberate. Hunters often drop to all fours, or even lie flat, crawling slowly across the surface to distribute weight more evenly and minimize pressure on any single point. These fragile zones require instinct more than equipment. A hunter with decades of experience knows how to interpret the faint creaks, the soft shifts beneath the surface, and when it's safer to back away than move forward. These aren't just lessons, they're lifelines. Among seasoned hunters, this cautious crawl is known as the Arctic Shuffle. It's not elegant, and no one's winning races doing it, but it's kept generations of hunters alive. Reaching within range of a walrus herd is a slow, deliberate battle, especially when the walruses have their own defense strategy. Often, a herd will assign lookout duty to older females. These sentinels are especially sensitive to movement and sound, staying alert while the others rest. Years of observation have taught hunters how to recognize which animals are on guard and how to adjust their approach accordingly. One elder, chuckling, once remarked, "Teenagers. They're too busy admiring their new tusks to notice danger." As the final yards shrink to feet and inches, progress slows to a crawl. Sometimes movement is timed to the rhythm of natural sounds, a gust of wind, the groaning of ice, or even the shuffling of the walruses themselves. The final moments are filled with tension. A single misstep could send the entire herd plunging into the sea in seconds. What follows is not just a test of skill. It's a test of heart, of patience, and of the hunter's ability to remain calm in the most fragile of moments. Striking a walrus is far more complex than simply hurling a harpoon and hoping for the best. It demands the kind of accuracy and judgment you might expect from someone trying to parallel park blindfolded during a storm. The ideal target isn't large. It's a vulnerable spot located just behind the massive shoulder blade, no bigger than a dinner plate. If the aim veers forward, the dense layers of blubber will deflect the harpoon. Too far back, and the weapon loses its power entirely. The walrus's body armor is formidable, up to 4 inches of hide topped with 6 more inches of insulating blubber, penetrating 10 inches of natural protection, while aiming at a moving target weighing over 4,000 pounds is no small feat. It's like trying to drive a spear through 10 stacked leather coats, all while your target is seconds away from disappearing into freezing, open water. The actual throw is a combination of power and precision. It's a learned motion, passed down and refined over hundreds of years. One elder described it as throwing lightning, a burst of speed and accuracy, striking without hesitation. Yet in the Arctic, where fingers stiffen from the cold in minutes, even throwing becomes a battle. Hunters keep their wrists and shoulders subtly moving during the approach, small stretches, quiet rotations, anything to keep circulation flowing. As one experienced hunter joked, "You've got to hit a target you can barely see with fingers you can't feel." Timing the strike is just as crucial as aiming. Walruses follow a predictable breathing rhythm, surfacing every 5 to 7 minutes and remaining visible for only a couple of minutes. That brief period is the window. The harpoon is launched mid-breath, at the moment when the walrus is calmest and least likely to dive. But that rhythm can shift without warning. If startled, a walrus may suddenly hold his breath, a silent sign that it's aware something is wrong. This behavior acts like a built-in alarm, and skilled hunters learn to spot the change. Add wind to the mix, and timing becomes even trickier. A steady 20-mile-per-hour gust can drift a harpoon several inches off course during a 20-foot throw. But seasoned hunters rarely need instruments to adjust. They've developed a feel for the wind, adjusting their stance or angle with tiny, practiced movements. The line that follows the harpoon is no less important. It must unravel perfectly, without the slightest tangle, or the entire shot could be ruined, or worse, put the hunter at risk. These lines are coiled with great care into a pattern that releases cleanly, even in blowing wind and freezing temperatures. Handling it requires deep concentration and an almost intuitive touch. Some hunters have developed such acute awareness that they can detect a problem in the line by sound alone. These individuals are jokingly referred to as line whisperers, known for their uncanny ability to feel and hear subtle disturbances that might go unnoticed by others. During the actual strike, coordination among the team is as tight and silent as a symphony. The lead thrower, the person managing the line, and the support members all work in unspoken harmony. Each roll is timed to the second. Any confusion, one misstep or hesitation, and the entire effort can collapse into a blur of ice, snow, and missed opportunity. Modern innovations have improved some gear. Harpoon heads are now made from steel, staying sharper and cutting more efficiently than older versions carved from bone. Lines are stronger, more resistant to water and cold, but the heart of the strike remains unchanged. The throw still comes down to a steady hand, a sharp eye, and years of practice. Hunters may joke that the new harpoons save them time on sharpening, but they know better than anyone that no tool can replace judgment and experience. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the walrus strike is the calm with which it must be delivered. With adrenaline pounding and the entire hunt hanging in the balance, hunters must slow their breath, still their hands, and throw with absolute precision. It's like threading a needle in a moving car, only the needle is a harpoon and the car is a drifting ice sheet. Victory or failure may be separated by less than an inch, sometimes no more than the width of a single walrus whisker. In that instant, everything, the skill, the timing, the generations of knowledge, comes together in one silent, powerful act. Walrus whiskers, known scientifically as vibrissa, are more than just facial features. They are finely tuned sensory instruments. These thick, wiry hairs can detect the faintest movements in the water around them. That means in the final moments before the harpoon strike, the hunter must move with seamless fluidity to avoid sending any vibrations through the ice that might alert the animal. Yet, delivering the harpoon is only half the challenge. The real test begins after impact. Striking a walrus that's resting comfortably on ice is one thing. Holding onto it once it's wounded and angry is another altogether. The moment the harpoon hits its mark, a wall of power is unleashed. A full-grown male walrus can produce over 2,000 pounds of pulling force, enough to drag a compact car across slick ice. In those intense first seconds, entire hunting crews can find themselves sliding helplessly across the surface, clinging to lines as if on a ride powered by sheer brute strength. It's an exhilarating, dangerous moment. Maintaining control isn't simply a matter of strength. It's a balance of technique, teamwork, and constant adjustment. Too much resistance risks snapping the line. Too little, and the walrus gains control, potentially dragging the harpoon out or escaping entirely. The lead handler anchors into a braced stance, feet planted wide, knees bent, and body tilted back like a seasoned tug-of-war competitor. While they absorb the walrus's initial jolts, others quickly drive steel anchors into the ice, tying the line off to multiple points in a triangle formation. This system turns the flat ice sheet into a tension grid capable of resisting even the walrus's might. A typical struggle might last 20 to 45 minutes, with the line surging under pressure dozens of times. Rotating roles among the crew is essential to prevent fatigue. One elder liked to say he burned more calories fighting a walrus than his grandson did in a week working at his office job, though he gave the kid partial credit for his daily coffee runs. The battle tends to follow a pattern. It begins with a power dive, a sharp, violent plunge that often snaps poorly made lines. Then comes what hunters call the submarine phase, where the walrus swims deep and steadily, testing every knot, anchor, and bit of human endurance. The strain on the line is so intense that it produces a thin, high-pitched hum known as the walrus whistle, a sound both chilling and thrilling to those holding on. Coordination during this stage must be flawless. Despite thick winter clothing and bulky mittens, communication is clear and constant. Hunters use a mix of hand signals and barked commands that have barely changed through the years. Simple phrases like brace left, give slack, or swap out echo across the ice with military precision. One hunter quipped that the only other time you'd hear that much coordinated shouting is during a family argument at Thanksgiving dinner. From a mechanical perspective, the force exerted on a line can spike past 3,000 pounds. Hunters often use the walrus's own energy to wear it down, allowing it to exhaust itself. Ice anchors are engineered to absorb and distribute this force across multiple points. Some teams even use a 5-point star pattern, anchoring the line in several directions to build a resistance network that borders on unbreakable. This system, though simple in appearance, is the product of decades of innovation, mishaps, and relentless refinement. Not all walruses resist the same way. Younger bulls are known for their chaotic, thrashing energy, pulling in fast, aggressive bursts. Older ones are more methodical, applying a slow but powerful tension that feels like grappling with a heavyweight wrestler. Seasoned hunters can often estimate a walrus's age and size just from the rhythm of the pull. Some fight like boxers, said one. Others like sumo wrestlers, and a few. They just like to put on a show. All of this unfolds under extreme conditions. Wind chills often fall below -40 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing bare skin in moments. The ice, polished smooth by constant pressure and temperature swings, offers little traction. Hunters rely on techniques passed down for generations, like applying seal blood to their boots for extra grip. The trick works remarkably well, but it does leave the boots smelling like a seafood stall for days. Float bags become critical once the walrus tries to escape underwater. These are attached to the secondary line and create water resistance, slowing the animal and making it easier to track. While some hunters now use inflatable plastic buoys, many still prefer traditional sealskin floats. They don't burst when scraped by sharp ice, perform better in extreme cold, and offer the right balance of resistance and give. More importantly, hunters trust them. They've proven themselves under fire again and again. And in a place where failure is never an option, reliability is the greatest trait a tool can have. One of the smartest additions to modern walrus hunting setups is the inclusion of quick-release systems. These allow hunters to disconnect instantly in high-risk moments, when ice shifts suddenly, when a line snarls unexpectedly, or when a walrus dives with explosive force. With a single pull, the hunter can separate from the harness without losing control of the main line. It's like the Arctic version of an ejector seat, rarely needed, but absolutely critical when something goes wrong. Interestingly, this isn't a brand new idea. Long before synthetic gear, Inuit hunters used a clever knot designed to slip free under pressure with a single, well-placed tug. It's a reminder that many so-called innovations are simply modern twists on traditional brilliance. Despite all the advances, about 30% of struck walruses still manage to escape. These aren't failures of force. They're usually mechanical. A frayed rope, a knot that didn't hold, a miscommunication in the crew. That's why hunters are meticulous when it comes to gear maintenance. Even in the off-season, every rope, carabiner, blade, and lashing is examined again and again. Every knot is practiced. Every connection is tested. Because no one wants to be remembered as the crew that lost the one that got away. As soon as a walrus begins to tire, hunters switch focus to the next stage, hauling. This part is physically brutal. Think of pulling two mid-sized vehicles across a sheet of ice with no traction and no wheels. That's the level of muscle and strategy required. But before any pulling begins, the hunters have to identify a proper landing spot. Not all ice can handle a 4,000-pound animal. They search for what's called a landing shelf. Flat, solid ice strong enough to bear the load but low enough to allow for maneuvering. Some of these areas are so dependable, they've earned names, passed down like favorite campfire stories or old family recipes. To haul a walrus from the sea onto the ice, it usually takes a well-coordinated team of 8 or more. The force needed to move such a beast often exceeds 5,000 pounds, equivalent to lifting a fully loaded pickup truck. Instead of relying solely on raw power, hunters use systems of pulleys and ropes, many combining time-honored techniques with durable modern materials. Engineering students might draw force diagrams and measure angles, but Arctic hunters have mastered leverage in the harshest real-world classroom imaginable. As one hunter put it, "We understood pulleys long before protractors showed up." The coordination is almost choreographed. The strongest hunters lead from the front, gripping the main line. Behind them, others guide and stabilize the walrus's path, adjusting angles and rope tension to prevent it from sliding off course. Timing is everything. Commands are shouted with precision, each one triggering a movement that ripples through the line like a drumbeat. When it works, it's a dance, driven by muscle, legacy, and unity. At the heart of this process is the camu, a traditional sled built without screws or nails. Instead, it's bound together with rope lashings that absorb shock and flex with the ice, extending the sled's life and reducing breakage. Some hunters joke that their camu could survive an avalanche or what one called the polar apocalypse edition. Interestingly, there's one more helper in this grueling process: temperature. When the surface hovers just below freezing, a microscopic layer of meltwater forms between the walrus and the ice, easing friction. It's a narrow window, but when conditions line up, it can cut down hauling resistance noticeably. Hunters time their effort to take advantage of this brief natural assist. Still, even with a slick surface, hauling a 2-ton animal across unstable ice is far from easy. Then come the tusks. On older males, these can stretch over 3 feet and tend to catch on every edge, crack, or seam in the ice. That's why one team member is assigned a special task, guiding the tusks using hooked poles. It's a job nicknamed the Tusk Whisperer, though most who do it would say it's less whispering and more wrestling. The tusks aren't just in the way. They're heavy and fragile, and if they snap, the loss is cultural as well as practical. Temperature becomes even more important in this final stretch. The ideal range lies between 25 degrees Fahrenheit and 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Warmer than that, and the ice softens under pressure, making every step riskier. Any colder, and the gear starts to fight back. Ropes go stiff, pulleys jam, and lines become brittle. One hunter once described how the rope coiled up stiff as a board. It looked like frozen spaghetti, and just as likely to snap. And when a single rope carries the weight of the hunt, a snap can mean losing more than just time. At this point, every command, every inch of movement, every tug on the rope carries weight. This isn't just the end of a hunt. It's a coordinated retrieval, a moment when tradition, skill, muscle, and experience must align perfectly to reclaim a prize from the edge of the Arctic world. In the modern Arctic, technology isn't replacing traditional hunting. It's becoming part of it. Synthetic ropes, some stronger than steel by weight, are now being used by many hunting teams. Yet even with these upgrades, nothing is more essential than the experience behind the hands tying the knots. In temperatures that drop to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, even a small slip, a poorly tied loop or a miscoiled line, can mean the difference between holding onto a 4,000-pound walrus or losing it to the sea. What impresses most isn't the gear, but the adaptability. Hunters assess the ice constantly. On thick, stable surfaces, they can pull more directly and with fewer anchors. But when the ice is thin, shifting, or riddled with cracks, they get creative, dispersing the force across wider areas, using multi-line pulley systems, and adapting every move to the surface beneath their boots. To coordinate such complex efforts, hunting teams have developed a system of verbal cues and commands that's as refined as it is effective. These calls change depending on the type of ice, the direction of the pull, or even the behavior of the walrus. It's a kind of spoken engineering, unique, layered, and so specific that a linguist could study it for years and still miss half the nuances. It's part language, part instinct, and entirely rooted in the need for survival. Time becomes the next challenge the instant the walrus is pulled onto the ice. The meat must be processed quickly before the cold transforms it into something harder than stone. Once frozen solid, even the sharpest blade can barely make progress without exhausting the handler. To avoid this, hunters work in timed shifts, swapping out every few minutes to avoid both muscle fatigue and frostbite. Some modern tools, like battery-powered winches, have been introduced to ease the burden, but their success is limited. They're heavy, clunky, and unreliable in extreme cold. The machines might work in theory, but in practice, they often fail where tradition succeeds. As one elder joked while watching a stalled winch freeze up, "That battery might be smart, but my nephew's arms keep getting stronger." Battery performance is another critical weakness. In temperatures below -30 degrees Fahrenheit, even high-end lithium cells can die in minutes. That's why traditional systems, driven by teamwork, rhythm, and physical endurance, continue to outperform their modern counterparts, especially when conditions turn brutal. Once the animal is secured and stabilized, the true test of skill begins: processing. Compared to this, field dressing a moose or butchering a steer feels like preparing lunch. The walrus is a fortress of hide and mass, and breaking it down demands precise anatomical knowledge passed through generations. Hunters describe it as solving a 2-ton puzzle. Each section must be removed in the right order, handled carefully, and designated for its specific use. It starts with the outer layer, a hide roughly 1 inch thick that can weigh over 500 pounds. Removing it requires specially made tools, especially the traditional ulu. This rounded, hand-held blade slices with control and speed, its design perfectly suited for the job. Some hunters even joke that the hide is thick enough to stop bullets or withstand a polar bear tackle. Exaggerations, perhaps, but not by much. Once the skin is off, the process becomes about efficiency and preservation. Hunters follow cutting patterns passed down over centuries, not just to get at the meat, but to ensure that it stays usable for as long as possible. The angle of a cut, the direction of a slice, these choices affect how the meat cures, freezes, and stores. Done well, the meat remains tender and full of flavor. Done poorly, it can toughen or spoil. An adult walrus yields up to 1,500 pounds of meat and organs, enough to support several families through the long winter months. The meat itself is dark, rich, and dense, packing more protein per pound than beef. But the organ meat plays a different role. The liver, for instance, is loaded with vitamin C, an essential nutrient in a land where oranges and apples don't exist. Long before science confirmed it, Inuit hunters knew that walrus liver kept people strong through sunless months. When the harvest is complete, the division of the meat follows deeply ingrained customs. Who gets what isn't based on rank, but on contribution, need, and tradition. Every person involved, harpooners, line handlers, tusk guides, has a share. The distribution process is as finely tuned as the hunt itself. Each muscle, organ, and bone is accounted for. Nothing is wasted. Every piece has a purpose, whether it's nourishment, a tool, or part of ceremonial wear. One elder summed it up best. You're not just feeding families. You're feeding memory, respect, and survival. The coordination of it all is done without spreadsheets or clipboards, just instinct, shared understanding, and unspoken trust honed over generations. The thick layer of blubber surrounding a walrus presents its own kind of challenge, often reaching depths of up to 6 inches. This fatty shield must be removed with extreme care. A shallow cut wastes valuable material, while cutting too deep can damage the meat underneath. Skilled hunters, usually with years of experience, learn how to lift the blubber away in large, clean sheets. Once collected, this fat is rendered into oil, an incredibly versatile resource used for fueling lamps, waterproofing clothing and boots, and even as a nutrient-rich food source. Many still claim nothing keeps their gear dry quite like walrus oil, though they'll admit the smell isn't exactly a crowd pleaser. At the same time, meat management becomes a delicate balancing act. It must be kept from freezing into an unworkable mass, but can't be allowed to warm too much either. Achieving that sweet spot requires vigilance, especially in a place where even the air feels like a freezer. Teamwork becomes essential. While some members continue to butcher, others prepare storage containers, wrap meat in breathable coverings, or transport it back to camp. The coordination has a rhythm to it, like a culinary operation staged entirely on ice, using the open sky as a ceiling and the Arctic air as a walk-in fridge. Tusks are treated with the same level of precision and reverence as every other part of the animal. These long ivory structures can reach more than 3 feet in length and are removed using specially made tools that prevent cracking. Once cleaned, tusks may be set aside for ceremonial use or carved into intricate artwork and tools. They're also biological timekeepers, growing rings much like tree trunks. Skilled hunters can estimate the animal's age simply by counting these growth lines, a trick that merges traditional knowledge with biological insight. The bones, particularly from the skull and shoulders, are equally valuable. Their density makes them ideal for fashioning everything from knife handles to fishing gear, and even sled components. In some communities, there are artisans dedicated to transforming these bones into pieces that are as functional as they are beautiful. From the hide to the tusks to the marrow-filled bones, nothing is ever wasted. The entire process reflects not just survival, but a deep-rooted culture of respect and purpose, where each part of the animal serves a role that's understood, honored, and continued across generations. Even long after the walrus is harvested, its body continues to offer utility in ways both practical and symbolic. The massive shoulder blades, for instance, are tough and wide enough to be used as shovels. It's become a long-standing joke in some Arctic communities that walruses help clean up winter snow even after they're gone. But beneath the humor lies serious purpose. Nearly every internal organ is used in some meaningful way. The stomach, once cleaned and stretched, becomes the drumhead for ceremonial instruments. Its deep, resonating sound carries through Arctic air during festivals or community gatherings. The intestines, treated and dried by skilled hands, are turned into lightweight, waterproof garments. These natural membranes hold up exceptionally well in cold, wet conditions, outperforming even many modern synthetics when it comes to keeping moisture out during hunts. And the heart, that's often shared among the hunting crew right on the ice. It's not just a source of iron and essential nutrients. It's a symbol of unity. One young hunter once said with a laugh, "One bite of walrus heart gives you strength for the haul." Thankfully, not the belly. When it comes to storage, new tools blend with old wisdom. Some families have begun using modern freezers powered by solar panels or portable generators. But in many communities, permafrost storage remains the gold standard. These natural cellars are carved deep into the earth and remain cold all year, providing silent, electricity-free preservation. It's nature's own deep freeze, and it's still unmatched in reliability. Traditional preservation methods also continue to thrive. One such technique, called igun, involves fermenting selected cuts of meat under carefully controlled conditions. To outsiders, it may sound unusual, but the result is a rich, flavorful food that can last through the darkest, coldest months. Elders who've honed this craft can often gauge the fermentation's success just by the texture or even the subtle sound a slice makes. These methods aren't just about survival. They're cultural treasures, passed down like treasured recipes as essential to Arctic life as the hunt itself. Processing a walrus is far more than a physical undertaking. It's a communal act deeply rooted in culture and connection. The moment the animal is brought ashore, the entire community becomes part of the work. Children join in by scrubbing hides or gathering tools, eager to play their role. Adults manage the heaviest tasks, cutting and hauling. Elders serve as both overseers and teachers, ensuring each step honors the tradition. The ice itself transforms into a classroom, where knowledge is passed not through lectures, but through action. Grandparents guide young hands, teaching them to identify organs by feel. Parents show teens how to angle a knife just right when slicing through blubber. Even the steady rhythm of cutting carries lessons remembered not in words, but in muscle memory. One hunter recalled learning alongside his grandfather, who could determine whether a cut was right based solely on the texture beneath his hands. As this work unfolds, so do the stories. Tales of previous hunts, sudden weather changes, and walruses that seemed more myth than animal flow freely. These aren't just stories. They are the living threads of identity, stitching one generation to the next through shared experience. To many outside observers, walrus processing may seem straightforward. But within these communities, it is a highly strategic operation, shaped by timing, environment, and intuition. The cutting doesn't always begin the moment the team returns to camp. Hunters first read the conditions: moonlight for visibility, wind speed for drying, humidity in the air. Some can even detect oncoming weather shifts by scent alone, adjusting the timeline accordingly. When all is ready, snow walls are constructed to block out harsh winds, and shallow trenches are dug into the snow to help regulate meat temperature. These small pits act like natural refrigerators, holding the meat at just the right coolness without letting it freeze too hard. Different snow types are chosen depending on the exact temperature needed. Light, fluffy snow chills meat quickly, while denser snow slows freezing. One elder explained that the snow becomes a second set of hands, quietly working alongside the hunters to keep conditions optimal. Clouds are just as vital in these decisions. In Arctic communities, weather reading is not guesswork. It's a refined skill passed down like hunting techniques. Elders scan the skies for specific cloud formations, hues, and movements. Thin layers may indicate ideal air for drying, while thick, fast-moving clouds might suggest a storm is brewing. In some villages, certain individuals are trusted as designated weather watchers. Their experience helps dictate the pace of processing, whether to speed up, slow down, or even pause the work entirely. The locations selected for processing aren't random either. Many are time-honored sites used for generations, chosen for their natural advantages. Some offer shelter from the wind, others capture just enough sunlight to maintain the right conditions. These places often bear names in the Inuit language, names that mark them with stories. One such place, loosely translated, means where grandfather's harpoon broke, but the feast was still good. Sound, too, plays a role in this cultural choreography. The slicing of a sharp blade through thick blubber produces a distinct swish. A duller sound signals a blade in need of sharpening. If the meat begins to crunch beneath the blade, it's freezing too fast. Even footsteps matter. A deeper snow crunch might mean the ground is too soft for ideal preservation. Hunters, trained through years of observation, read all of it instinctively. Every action, every noise, every subtle sign feeds into the process. When the final cuts are made and nothing is left to divide, tools are cleaned, dried, and stored carefully for the next hunt. The gear isn't just equipment. It's the carrier of experience, reused with reverence. Processing a walrus is never simply about obtaining food. It is a ritual shaped by weather, guided by ancestral knowledge, and sustained by community. In the Arctic, survival has never been separate from wisdom. Each hunt is a continuation of those that came before it, and each harvest carries their voices forward, echoing across the ice. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button, leave a comment below, and make sure to subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and tells me you're liking the content. Catch you in the next one.